My name is Morella Vance, I'm 24, and my parents told me to my face, "We won't pay your college tuition. You don't deserve it." If you've ever faced something like this, comment where you're reading from. It was Thursday, August 27, 2019, 1842, and the smell of fried onions was still hanging in the kitchen when the sentence dropped like a cleaver. My sister was sitting across from me, fingers drumming against her phone case, not lifting her eyes. The fluorescent light flickered once above the dining table, as if even the bulb resisted what was being said. We had both been accepted into the same program at the University of Corbin, letters arriving 2 days apart. Mine was pinned with a magnet on the fridge, next to the grocery list that read milk 2L, eggs 12, dish soap. Hers was folded neatly into an envelope in her desk drawer. Same school. Same degree. Same year. Why hers and not mine? I asked, my throat tightening. I was gripping a glass of water, the condensation dripping cold onto my palm. "Because she earned it," my mother said flat. "You always spread yourself too thin." It wasn't true. My grades were nearly identical. The acceptance letters identical too. But the tone left no room for discussion. My father pushed the calculator aside, the one he always used when speaking about bills and mortgages. He didn't even look at me. "We will cover her tuition in full. You'll need to figure your own out." The word full landed heavy. At that time it meant $14,600 per year plus books. I felt heat crawl up my neck. My sister shifted in her chair, finally speaking. "Maybe it's better this way." The fork on my plate screeched against porcelain as I set it down too fast. The kitchen was suddenly unbearable, stifling onion and detergent in the air, the faint hum of the fridge. I swallowed hard, fighting the urge to argue, because I already knew where it would go, nowhere. But deep inside, something pressed against the walls of my chest. A mismatch. A fracture line. I could hear it in the calm certainty of their voices. This was not about money. It was about control. I excused myself, went to my room and closed the door. The ticking of the cheap alarm clock on my nightstand was louder than ever. I didn't know yet that in 2 years and 11 weeks, they would go pale when they discovered what I had done. On September 3, 2019, 1 week before classes began, I sat at the small kitchen table in our apartment, the Formica surface chipped on the corner. The clock on the wall read 7:16. A mug of coffee, lukewarm, slightly burnt, sat in front of me. I kept turning my enrollment packet over. The university logo embossed in blue. My sister strolled in, humming, wearing a new hoodie with the school's emblem already stitched on the chest. She hadn't paid for it. Our parents had. "Orientation's at 9, she said casually, dropping her keys onto the counter. They clinked sharp in the quiet room. I nodded. I had orientation too. Same building. Same floor. But no one had bought me a hoodie, no one had offered to drive me. I'd be taking the 7:55 bus from Maple Avenue, paying $1.75 with coins I'd counted out the night before. My father entered, adjusting his tie. He glanced at my papers. "Don't expect us to cover anything. You hear?" His tone was almost routine, like reminding me to lock the door. "I know," I said, my voice tight. My mother added, "And don't come asking for book money. You'll need at least $620 this semester. We can't keep rescuing you." Rescuing me. The word stuck like a stone. I looked down at the list of required texts. 6 titles, all thick, all expensive. My thumb traced the first one. Principles of Microeconomics, 8th edition. I had already found a used copy online for $44 instead of $89, and I was planning to pick it up from a seller after class. My sister slung her bag over one shoulder. "You're making it harder than it has to be," she said softly, almost with pity. Something hardened in me then. The disrespect was no longer subtle, it was open. They didn't even pretend we were equals. I closed my packet, slipped it into my bag and stood. The chair legs screeched against the linoleum. "I'll figure it out," I said. Not for them. For myself. That morning, as the bus rattled down Pine Street and the air smelled faintly of exhaust and wet asphalt, I clenched my hands around the metal bar in front of me. I had exactly $312 in my bank account, no promise of more, and a semester's worth of tuition looming like a shadow. But something sharp and steady had sparked inside me. Resolve. I didn't know the path yet, but I knew this. I wasn't going to let them decide who deserved a future. When I look back, the pattern was always there. Like seams in old fabric you ignore until it finally tears. At 12, I remember our living room in January. Dry heat blasting from the vents, the window frosting over. My sister wanted piano lessons. Without hesitation, they signed her up $45 per session twice a week. I asked to join too, just to try. My father shook his head. You don't commit. We're not wasting money. I watched her practice scales while I carried laundry upstairs. At 15, she needed braces. $3,200 upfront, covered without question. I had the same crooked teeth. You'll grow into your smile, my mother said. At 17, we both entered a science fair. I remember the smell of poster paint in the basement, my project spread across the floor. Charts on water filtration. Hers was about solar cells. When the results came, she placed first, I placed second. That night, they took her out for dinner to celebrate. I stayed home with reheated pasta. It wasn't about talent. It was about where they chose to invest belief. By the time we applied to college, I already knew the math of our household. She was the return, I was the risk. I had a part-time job at Mercer's Deli, slicing ham and stacking bread, saving every $5 bill in an envelope taped under my desk. She spent weekends at volleyball tournaments, and they drove hours to cheer. What was at stake for me wasn't just tuition. It was proof. Proof that I wasn't disposable. That I could claim a seat in a lecture hall without someone's permission. But there was also the practical weight. Tuition was $14,600 per year. Rent near campus, if I ever wanted to move out, would run around $780 a month for a room. Even groceries, eggs, rice, coffee would pile up. Numbers that had to be faced without backup. At 19, I had once overheard my grandmother's voice on the phone. You treat them differently, and it will cost you later. She wasn't invited over much after that. Now at 24, that echo still rang. The pattern hadn't been about resources. It was about control disguised as budgeting. I held on to one fact like a lifeline. The university had a work-study program. 20 hours a week on campus, $9.80 an hour, and sometimes meal vouchers. It wasn't much, but it was leverage. That's what was truly at stake. Not just surviving the semester, but surviving the long inheritance of being the lesser one, and rewriting that balance quietly, one paycheck at a time. The first piece of evidence arrived on a gray afternoon in October 2020, more than a year into classes. I was in the campus library, 4th floor, the air smelling faintly of old paper and toner. My laptop hummed warm against my wrists. I had been eating a granola bar when my email pinged. A forwarded PDF from the university's financial office. Subject line: Statement of Account Fall Term. I opened it, expecting to see the usual installment plan I'd fought to keep up with. Instead, 2 accounts appeared on one page, mine and my sister's. Someone at the office must have mistakenly merged the attachments. Her balance: $0. 00. Mine, $7,300 outstanding. Next to her name was a line. Payment received, bank transfer September 12, 2020, $14,600. Next to mine, deferred. The words made my throat dry. I zoomed in, the numbers crisp against the white background. I could see the transaction ID, a long string of digits. Proof. They had told me they couldn't afford to help me, that paying both was impossible. Yet there it was, one clean bank transfer, more than enough to cover both if they had wanted to split it. My phone buzzed on the desk. A message from my sister. Don't be late tonight. They're expecting us for dinner at 6:30. I stared at the screen, then back at the PDF. I pressed print before I could overthink, the machine across the room whirring to life. The sheet came out warm, the ink still sharp smelling. I folded it into my notebook, the paper stiff under my fingers. Later, at dinner, the table gleamed with polished cutlery and roasted chicken. My father passed potatoes across to my sister, smiling. I asked carefully, "Do you ever wonder why our tuition statements look different?" Silence. A beat too long. Then my mother's voice. "You shouldn't concern yourself with her finances." It wasn't about her. It was about the lie. And now I had it in black and white, folded in my bag between lecture notes. I went to my room that night and laid the page flat on the desk. I touched the numbers again, almost like testing if they'd fade. They didn't. Something clicked inside me. Not panic this time, but certainty. I make a choice. 2 days after finding that PDF, I decided I couldn't rely on my own anger alone. I needed confirmation. Facts, not fumes. It was October 14, 2020, and the campus air carried that sharp, leafy smell, wet ground, cold wind. I walked across to the administrative building, clutching my notebook where the printout was tucked. The fluorescent lights inside buzzed faintly, and the floor tiles reflected every shoe scuff. I asked to see someone in student accounts. They sent me to a cubicle where a woman with square glasses and a cardigan sat behind dual monitors. Her desk had a ceramic mug with "Numbers Don't Lie" written in teal. "I think I received a statement by mistake," I said, sliding the page forward. My fingers left a faint smudge on the corner. She adjusted her glasses, scanning quickly. Then she tapped her keyboard. "Yes, looks like this page includes your sibling's account by error. That shouldn't have gone to you." "But the payment line," I pressed, pointing. $14,600. "Does that mean it was paid in full by bank transfer?" She hesitated only a second. "Correct. On September 12th. Your account is separate. You still have $7,300 deferred from this semester." Hearing it confirmed made my stomach knot, yet also settle. No paranoia, just reality. Back outside, the cold hit sharper. My phone vibrated again. A reminder from my part-time shift at the cafe, 5 to 9 p.m. Minimum wage $9.80/hour. 4 hours tonight meant $39.20 before taxes. At that pace, it would take me over 370 shifts to cover 1 year's tuition. That number carved itself into my mind. I called my grandmother that evening, sitting on the back steps of the cafe with the smell of espresso grounds clinging to my sweater. I read the numbers to her. She was quiet, then said, "They always favored her. But now you have paper. Don't underestimate paper." "What do I do?" I asked. "First, keep every document. Dates, amounts. Second, don't let them know yet. Let them keep talking. It's stronger when the truth arrives late." Her words steadied me. I wrote the date and the exact figure, $14,600 transfer September 12, 20, on the back of the page in my neatest handwriting. Proof verified, witnessed in the system, witnessed by her. I walked home with that page pressed against my notebook like armor. The stakes weren't abstract anymore. They were digits, balances, deadlines. And they were choosing deliberately who would carry the debt. By February 2021, the weight of tuition had nearly cracked me. My balance had climbed to $9,880, and collection notices had started arriving in stiff white envelopes, the kind with glassine windows. I stacked them in my desk drawer, the paper sharp against my fingers. That was when I decided to use the lever I had, a formal complaint with exhibits. It began in the quiet of the library basement, where the old radiators hissed and the air smelled faintly of dust. I opened a blank document and started assembling. 1. The missent PDF showing my sister's $14,600 transfer. 2. My own outstanding balance notice. 3. A timeline of our parallel admissions. I wrote a cover letter addressed to the Dean of Student Financial Services. My tone was factual, almost cold. The attached documents demonstrate unequal parental support in a context where both students were admitted on equal academic grounds. This has resulted in significant financial hardship and potential disruption of my studies. I request review for institutional equity assistance. When I printed the packet, 8 pages total, the smell of toner clung to my hands. I slid them into a manila folder, its edges stiff, the flap sealed with a brass clasp. The next morning I knocked on the dean's office door. A tall man in a gray suit opened it. "Yes. I'd like to submit a formal complaint," I said. My voice didn't waver. He gestured me in, took the folder and flipped the first page. His brow furrowed. "We don't usually get family inequity cases," he murmured. "These are university accounts," I said evenly. "And the consequences are academic." He nodded slowly. "We'll review. Expect to hear back in 3 weeks." Walking out, my heart hammered so loud I could hear it over the squeak of my boots on the tile. But beneath the nerves, a current of something else, quiet defiance. At home that evening, my parents were at the dining table. My sister was laughing at something on her phone. I set down my backpack and my father glanced up. "You look busy," he said. "Just paperwork," I replied steady. They didn't know yet what kind of paperwork. Not yet. And when the letter arrived, stamped with the university seal, 3 weeks later, I saw my mother's hand tremble as she slid it open. She read silently, lips pressing thin. My father took the page next. His jaw tightened. They weren't used to being the ones caught off guard. The consequences unfolded slowly, then all at once. The dean's office granted me an equity adjustment scholarship. $6,000 per year for the remainder of my program. The award letter arrived March 9, 2021, on crisp letterhead, black serif font against thick white stock. I traced the embossed seal with my fingertip, hardly believing it was real. Practically, it meant my outstanding balance dropped from $9,880 to $3,880. Manageable. Survivable. With my cafe job and the work-study shifts, I could cover that. For the first time, the numbers didn't feel like a noose. But at home, the air turned brittle. At dinner that week, my mother served chicken stew, steam fogging her glasses. She set the pot down harder than necessary. My sister avoided my eyes. My father finally said, "So you went behind our backs." I folded my napkin carefully, its fabric stiff from overstarching. "I went through the university." "That's not behind your back, it's forward." Silence. The only sound was the clock ticking above the pantry door. 1912. My sister muttered, "It wasn't supposed to be like this." I looked at her directly. "Supposed to be like what?" "You paid nothing." "I paid everything. All I did was show the truth." The words landed. She pushed her bowl away. My mother's spoon clattered against the side of her dish. Logistics shifted too. With the scholarship, I could finally cut my cafe hours back from 20 to 12 per week. That gave me evenings free time to breathe, to actually study instead of collapse. My grades edged up. By May, my GPA sat at 3.7. Even bills at home became battlegrounds. Electricity, internet, every receipt placed on the counter, my parents demanding I contribute. I did $60 here, $35 there, marking each payment in a small spiral notebook with blue ink. Not out of guilt, out of proof. The small win wasn't just the money. It was leverage shifting inside the household. They could no longer pretend I was dependent. I was covering my share, my education, and part of theirs. One evening in April, my grandmother called. "You sound lighter," she said. "I can see the finish line," I told her. And I could. Not the end of the war, but the edge of the battlefield where the ground leveled finally under my feet. The second piece of evidence came not from the university, but from the bank. In July 2021, while cleaning the kitchen, I found an envelope half hidden under a stack of utility bills. The paper smelled faintly of coffee, stained at one corner. It was a bank statement addressed to my father, but the top page showed 2 transactions that stopped me cold. A September 12, 2020, transfer to University of Corbin, $14,600. A January 5, 2021, transfer to University of Corbin, $14,600. Not once but twice. 2 full years prepaid for my sister, totaling $29,200. I held the envelope in my hand, the numbers glaring up at me. It wasn't about capacity. They had the money. They had chosen deliberately not to spend a cent on me. That evening, I laid the statement flat on the dining table before anyone sat down. My parents entered, my sister trailing. My father froze when he saw it. "Where did you get this?" "From the pile of bills," I said evenly. "It was under the internet statement." My mother's voice sharpened. "That's private." "So was my tuition account," I answered. "Yet you made it public by leaving me to beg and scrape. This proves what you denied. You could have split it. You didn't." My sister whispered. "It's not my fault." "I'm not blaming you," I said. "But I won't let the lie stand." My father's jaw worked. "You had options. Loans. Jobs. We invested where it mattered most." Calm, I slid the university's award letter across the table, its embossed seal catching the light. "And yet, despite your investment, I earned this. Not because of you, against you." For the first time, neither spoke. The silence was heavy, stretching out until the fridge motor kicked on with a low hum. In that pause, I felt the balance settle. There was no way back. The truth was written in digits and dates, in seals and signatures. Their countermove, anger, deflection, dissolved against hard numbers. I gathered the papers into a neat stack, the edges aligning. This stays with me now. It's my record, not yours. I stood, carried them upstairs, and placed them in the top drawer of my desk, underlined with a note in my handwriting. No more erasure. That night, I slept without waking once. It's September 2022 now, 1 year after that confrontation, and my daily life has its own rhythm. I rent a small studio on Ashford Street, 410 square feet, 3rd floor, with a slanted ceiling that creaks when it rains. The walls are painted pale gray, and every evening the light from the street lamp outside pools gold across my desk. My desk is where the stack of papers lives. PDF printouts, the award letter, the bank statement, tucked neatly in a blue binder labeled records. 3 mornings a week I wake at 6:30, make coffee in my dented French press, and walk to campus with earbuds in. I work 12 hours a week in the library's archives, the air cool and dry, the silence broken only by the click of the microfilm machine. My pay covers groceries and part of rent. The scholarship handles tuition. Balance finally. I still speak with my grandmother every Sunday evening. She always asks, "Are you steady?" And I answer, yes. Steady. My parents and I keep minimal contact. I attend birthdays, exchange the required pleasantries, but I no longer wait for approval or argue for fairness. When my father once tried to bring up family obligations, I said simply, "I cover my own. You cover yours." No heat, just fact. He didn't push. Boundaries now look like small, deliberate acts. I don't share my pay stubs with them. I don't discuss grades unless I want to. I leave gatherings when the tone shifts to comparisons. Instead, I focus forward. In 6 months, I'll graduate. My plan is to apply for a research assistant position in the city. Starting salary around $42,000. Enough to build something that is mine, not theirs. The future isn't dramatic. It's practical. A savings account, a lease in my own name, maybe braces at last, paid for with my own card. Tonight I sit at my desk, the binder of proof closed, my textbooks open. The room is quiet except for the steady hum of the radiator. I don't think about what they withheld anymore. I think about what I built in spite of it. And I choose myself in present tense every single day.